And 1 minute. Let's see. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody, for welcome to Co-op Week. Thanks for coming, and we really appreciate the sponsors that have made this event possible, and the USFWC for hosting this event every year. I would like to say that we're in difficult times now, but there are a bunch of things we can do to help change those difficult times to more cooperative times. Being part of a cooperative is, as you know, a wonderful experience. We all try to tell other people about that and introduce them to the co-op world. But one of the conversations that I find missing is a conversation about free software and our privacy, and protecting not only our privacy, but the privacy of our members and our clients or customers, if we're a public-facing co-op. I'd like to just get into things because we don't have much time. It's a very large subject about ethics and technology and choosing our web hosts and choosing the software that we use. So I will say thanks again for coming, and we'll start with ethical digital technology. What does that mean to choosing a web host, and what does that mean to choosing your software? And I'd like to ask Keegan to speak a little bit about that.
All right, so this, I do want to just point out that at the bottom, we do have a link to a pad, which does have some resources, which we might refer to throughout this conversation, as well as, and that's something that's editable by anyone who wants to add to it or push questions in it. We might look at it later after the chat. The other link is just a list of resources that's not editable that's on the Agaric site. And for the most part, the format of this is just going to be like us taking some questions and trying to have a discussion about them. The first of those questions is, why do we need ethical technology? So Mickey and Chris, do you have, what would you say about that question in general?
Yeah, Chris, jump in there.
Hi, everybody. I'm Chris. As you saw on the first slide, Mickey does all the stuff. I just do software. Anyway, yeah, you know, cooperatives are based on a set of principles that many of us know and are familiar with. And, you know, a lot of times when we choose technology to use, it's not much of a choice. It's not something that we give a lot of thought to. But I think that our cooperative ethics and principles need to come into play, because, you know, the internet has in large part shifted away from something that everybody could freely use and kind of build their own thing on, to places where we communicate in conglomerated storehouses of surveilled data. And you know, a lot of us have kind of become resigned to that, unfortunately. So I think that probably one of the most salient principles is concern for community, and I think you know, we can do something through our choices about ethical technology and the services we use to make a difference there.
Awesome. And I also just, unfortunately, you can't see my face, but you know, I'm just a disembodied voice, nothing new. But yeah,
Yes. Let's hide.
What's that?
Let's hide.
Let's hide. Right.
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that speaking to this question, it's just one of the challenges, I think, of growing up in this era is that, you know, we're dealing with a massive technological infrastructure that was, for the most part, built by full-fledged military contractors. You know, there's a great the book Surveillance Valley really speaks to the history of the internet and how the history of the internet actually originates mostly from you know, trying to suppress like insurgent groups in like warring countries like in Vietnam, for example, and how those were you know, examples of times where like the United States government was using this as while creating the internet, was basically performing you know, computer networking research and psychoanalytical research to try to understand how to suppress like communist groups, you know, and in particular how to suppress you know, Black groups in America and how to suppress Black power. So I mean, the Surveillance Valley is a great book on this topic. I highly recommend it. Really fascinating read and really fun to read, but also really disturbing to understand, you know, where the internet really comes from. So what, you know, why do we need ethical technology, and what does that mean to me? To me, you know, I see it as you know, building a new digital technological infrastructure, generally a new technological infrastructure that is not built into our military industrial complex. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's one of my deepest desires. So anyway, you know, obviously we'd like to be always using excellent technology, but you know, we have to ask this question, you know, why have we not been using ethical technology for all this time? Chris, Mickey, would you like to open up with some comments on this?
Well, I'll say the bullet points below really define why we have not. It's really not easy to find ethical technology. Like, what is it you're looking for in ethics? Who do you ask? Where do you go? Most of our online and software lives are controlled by corporate software, which has made it very, very convenient and easy to use their tools. And yeah, and Chris had some ideas about tools, like when you go to to nail in something, you look for a hammer. And what were you saying about that, Chris? It was really, really profound.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of times when you have a job to do, you know, you pick up the tool, you don't think much about, you know, where your hammer came from maybe, or whatever, you just start putting in nails. And, you know, as I was saying before, you know, the impact of the tools that we're using today have not just impacts on the people that made that hammer, you know, it goes well beyond that. You know, in relation to the first bullet, you know, we were given a lot of the tools that we're using today for free. You know, it looked like, you know, here's this great free tool, and you get to use it for free, and you don't have to buy X program or whatever. And you know, obviously, we came to learn that the reason that it was free is we've been paying with our data. You know, the end of the story there is, or the core of the story there is actually well explained by someone named Shoshana Zuboff, who uses the term surveillance capitalism. Essentially, there is value in whatever data can be collected from us while we're using these services. That value goes obviously to marketing, to predicting, making predictions about us, and so on. And the value of that data and how it has been used and monetized and so on is well described by her if you wanted to look into it. I put her name on the pad there. So again, that's surveillance capitalism. But anyway, yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the time it is just challenging, and you know, when we are living in a condition where we also have just, you know, networks built on that are sort of built around like entire communities that gather and use softwares entirely and are, you know, like founded on some of these softwares almost. Like sometimes it's just challenging, you know, when all your friends, the people that you talk to, are on Facebook, right? I mean, it's just like I personally had the experience of you know, going through college and going through my undergrad experience and not being on Facebook, and you know, it's just a, I mean, for me that was just a funny experience, you know, especially being like surrounded by people who, like, being engaged in a group of friends who are like actually spending a lot of their time and are having a lot of inside jokes that are occurring over online, and you know, things that I just didn't see. So I mean, it's just funny, sort of like you know, missing out on social interactions, and so I don't know. I did just want to speak to that a little bit, and some of the, of course, you know, it is compelling, you know, when all your friends are using this thing, or you know, everyone, and sometimes it's not even just a matter of friends, right? I also had you know, I've had jobs that have asked me to, you know, post things on Facebook many times, and I think that's, everyone has, right? And sometimes, like, that's just a part of your work, which you know, it's just, I think that's just challenging when it hurts a little bit, you know, when it feels bad, like, to your soul. And I think that's something that we're all dealing with and trying to learn how to deal with. And I think the best thing that we kind of come up with is, well, anyway, we'll get to this. We have some ideas for how to move past this. Obviously, it's not easy to just say, like, you can't use that. You know, we don't want to be saying that. We don't want to be criminalizing anyone, or you know, but we do want to be trying to raise solutions for how do we get past this.
So to step back for half a second, sorry, Keegan. Susie Tai shared in the chat Vietnamese here. I hear it. This is in relation to the internet being the origins of the internet. I'm here for bringing the internet back in service to the public. As I understand it, the internet was pretty much sold over to the private sector in the 90s, despite being funded by public dollars. Also, Chris he in Chicago, or maybe that's your pronoun, sorry. Jobs that require a cell phone is another thing, you know, where you're just giving into giving into requirements, technical and otherwise, and God knows how good of a surveillance device a cell phone is. And David, thanks for sharing the link to the GNU free software philosophy. We'll be getting into that in a lot more depth shortly.
Yes, I just added your link to the pad, the interactive pad we posted a link to at the beginning of the chat. Feel free to add some links there and comments or questions for the future. It's a living document. We'll revisit it and keep the conversation going. That's one of the most important parts, keeping the conversation going and opening it to new people who may not understand free software or ethical technology, because it's not something that is a general discussion in our society. We just have go-to hammers, you know, like as Chris was saying, we have go-to software that is very easy to use, and that makes it difficult for free software to be known about and shared. So yeah, I encourage you to add to the pad or add questions here in the chat like some of you are doing, or info you may have. Info is always welcome. So we'll get to that later too, about how to have your input in free software.
Certainly. One of the go-to hammers that we have, as we've been saying, is Zoom. Right, here we are meeting on Zoom, and Zoom is a proprietary platform. We just want to, you know, make it known. And typically, Garrick, you know, tries as much as possible to not use Zoom, but we understand that there are times where we do have to use Zoom, just as we've been saying. And again, you know, like, we do just want to point out, there's a link at the bottom that does point out some of the problems that are relevant to Zooms, which includes just privacy issues in terms of some like security flaws, even like the Zoom does, does have relationships with police organizations and such. I mean, we do just want to be more careful in general about the technologies that we're using. And we do have plenty of critiques of Zoom, but that's not going to be our focus for today. But Mickey, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about this?
Well, I wanted to say that Zoom has a large marketing budget due to many, many people paying a monthly fee to them for services. And I think this is mostly because people do not know about the alternatives, which, as I mentioned before, a lot of alternative free software does not have a big marketing budget. There is Jitsi Meet, which is a free alternative, and you can just use it in your browser. You don't have to download or install anything. And Agaric uses a solution called Big Blue Button. We host a server on Community Bridge, and we offer free chat rooms for people who would like to preserve their privacy and not have all of their chat go into the machine or the corporate funnel that puts us into different buckets. So bigbluebutton.org will tell you about the software. I posted a link in the chat. And if you go to communitybridge.com, you can sign up for a free chat room. All we need is the name of the room. We like to help people remain anonymous because sometimes you need to chat about things and you don't want your name attached to it or your company or anything. You just want to be a disembodied voice and gain some knowledge. So that should still be legal. And I guess the fight for open and free software is to help anonymity, help you be able to remain anonymous. Everything you purchase, do, or look at should not be subject to being in a file about you and your profile.
Right. So anyway, we did just want to acknowledge that Zoom is a go-to, and for reasons that exist that we're aware of, and that there are alternatives that we would love for everyone to take a look at and try with us, and work with us on those. So, getting to the, yep, go ahead, Chris.
And as far as Zoom goes, I mean, there's another one of the, well, there's an example of where the network effect kind of backfires. I feel particularly bad that I'm not giving any of you the choice to use free software to come and speak with us today. Instead we're having our words turned to text by a Google AI, and recordings being done by Zoom, and so on. But hopefully we can make some progress in remedying that.
Yep, it's all a work in progress. So I mean, that really brings us to our next point of what is free software / Libre software. I don't know how many people here. I know that there are plenty of people here, it seems like already, who are familiar with Libre software, but for anyone who is not familiar with Libre software, I'm choosing to use the word Libre instead of free. It's often referred to free, but the point is that Libre means freedom, right? Not as in free as in freedom, not as in free of cost. And so free software, I'll just read this one out, is is basically software that has the essential 4 user freedoms. Freedom 0 is the freedom to run the program as you wish for any purpose. Freedom 1 is the freedom to study how the program works and change it so it does your computing as you wish. Access to the source code is a precondition for this. Freedom 2 is the freedom to redistribute copies so you can help your neighbor. And freedom 3 is the freedom to distribute copies of your modified versions to others. By doing this, you can give the whole community a chance to benefit from your changes. Access to the source code is a precondition for this. And basically, free software is defined as free software by its licensing. So there are free software licenses that basically require that these freedoms are met. There's a lot more to that, but that's a general overview. Mostly for the most part, free software is about user freedom. So why should cooperatives care about free software? Like, what does it have to do with, what does free software have to do with cooperatives?
Sorry, Keegan, can I step back a second?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some conversation going on in the chat just about various tools and stuff. And I'll just say, as far as, Big Blue Button does have a transcription feature. I don't think that there's any translation yet. Mickey, you can clarify on that. But, Big Blue Button and Jitsi are both free software. These are places where we should be focusing our effort to add those particular features. We'll get into this part of it more, how to be part of the community doing those things. But specifically, the reason I wanted to interrupt on this slide was, plenty of people have heard of open source software. And, the free moniker is a really crappy one. And people think, oh, what, just, free as in beer, and it's a free as in speech, not beer thing. In that, it's about preserving the freedom of the users. And it is largely exactly the same as open source software. We tend to use the terms free and libre software to accentuate the reason that we use open source software, to just kind of mix it all together there. But having the source for software is the main thing. We're able to see what the program is doing. We're able to take that program and run it ourselves. We're able to change what it does. We can share it with each other and all of these other things. So the free and libre software movement is a political sort of slant on what open source is. They're really very much the same thing. So just wanted to throw that clarification out there, because I know there's a lot more recognition for open source than there historically has been for free software.
Yeah, basically it's deep. You can read into it. It's basically a political argument that because the freedom of the software is determined by a license, there are many different licenses where open source means it means that proprietary software can be rolled in with the free software, so it kind of makes the license less solid, and it means that corporations can own parts of the software, which makes it not for you not to be able to look inside of the software and see what it is doing to you, what it is capturing on you, what it is relaying to other systems or partners that they have. So yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good point. There is, the licenses that the Free Software Foundation publishes ensure that the software that they put on those licenses stays on those licenses. So you can't pick up a piece of a software license that way and make all your changes to it and then release it as your proprietary program without continuing to preserve the freedom of the users of that program. So, a couple of examples are, Google Chrome is proprietary software. Chromium, on the other hand, is open source. So you're able to use that open source software. You can disable things in it. You can change it and make your own. But one of the things that Google allowed themselves to do was, with that code base, is make their own proprietary version that no longer has those end user protections in there. So yeah, I mean, Android's the same thing. There's the Android open source roots. However, the phone that you get with Android on it is not there's a lot of non-free software on there, a lot of proprietary code that speaks to Google quite frequently about what you do with your phone. So, yeah.
Yes. I recently got a de-Googled phone, and I'm just about to use it. All I have to do is get my contacts into it. I'm not super swift at phone usage. I tend to use a laptop more than a phone. But I noticed Seth in the comments has made a comment about surveillance capitalist tools like Google Suite. Fortunately, there is a free software available. It's called Nextcloud, and it is pretty much a replacement for the Google Drive tools. And as we should say many times, the difference between one of the main differences between free and open source software is that you can get involved in the development of it. Not being a super deep technologist or even a coder, you can talk with the programmers, the people building it and working on it, and add suggestions for features that you would like. So supporting the free software movement in that way is very valuable. Just adding your voice to the pool of what do we want this to do? What new features do we want this to have? Free software people are more likely not to build in a vacuum, as a proprietary software will build in a vacuum. They will do surveys, market surveys, and say, we need these features and only these features, and they will never, ever listen to you about a feature that you need. Even if hundreds or thousands of people ask for this feature, it is a rare day that they will grant that, unless they can see it is a way towards profitability. So if your feature has no profitability and just makes it easier for you to use, well, that's too bad. And that is welcome in the world of free software.
Well, I think you've already spoken a little bit to the next question, which I began to pose earlier about why should cooperatives care about free software? You know, I think what Mickey was just saying, basically about you know, free software being a software being something that's built by a community of people who are using it, right, and have a stake in as users of the software itself, generally means on the one hand that we typically don't have to worry when we're using free software about that software spying on us. One example, you know, but Mickey, you sound like you're going to say something.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Chris posted, Chris from Chicago posted in the chat that, and this is so true, and that the hidden gem that people don't know about with free software, there is a group called the Open Collective, and they have put up a way for people to donate to the creation and building of free software products. So Chris says it's bizarre to see Open Collective asking me for software input, or me talking to them about necessary features, and then to see it put into effect within 1 to 5 weeks. That is amazing, and I do not believe most of the proprietary software users understand this. They've tried to write maybe to the Zoom Corporation or some other software and say, I would really like a feature that does this, but do they get a reply? Rarely, if ever. They probably do not get a reply at all. But in the free software world, we love to respond. We love the back and forth of what do you need this to do? There's an open issue queue for the Big Blue Button platform chat software. And it is just wonderful to go there and post a request and then go back a little while later and see other people have put a thumbs up on that request, and it rises to the top and developers look at it, and then you can add input like, is this how you want it? No, we wanted it, you know, like green with this round edges or something like it. It gets very, very interesting on how much input you can have into the tools we are using. So that's all I wanted to say. I get too excited.
I know. It is really exciting. Chris, did you want to say anything about this?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we had mentioned the cooperative principles earlier, and you know, this is one of the things that really blows my mind, that we aren't talking about free software in the cooperative movement like all the time.
Right.
You know, quite often I've seen it really get a lot of pushback, to be honest with you. And it surprises me. You know, I mean, open source software or free software, you know, there is that democratic control of it. You know, we're able to do with what we want. We can work together to build something that we want, you know, rather than being, you know, our information being monetized. You know, we're not being taken from, you know, per number 3. You know, autonomy and independence, obvious. The education is a huge thing too. You know, we can help each other to learn about these tools. Having the source code of the product, we're able to learn a lot more about the product itself, you know, how it works, how it runs, teach each other about the technology itself. You know, and cooperation among cooperatives, you know, where things are missing, we can work together to build those things. You know, and concern for community. I mean, I think that pretty much everybody is awake these days to the fact that, you know, the technology giants are concerned for our community, you know, and fighting back against them is pretty important at this point. Has been for a while, but I think it's reaching critical mass finally, thank God. That's it.
I also just kind of want to add the point, and this is something that I think about a lot, that, you know, I feel like in order to really develop, developing software takes a lot of work. I'll say that. It just takes a lot of work. It's well known. You know, it takes a long time to build a fully functioning program that does all the things that you need it to do. It's always a work in progress, and frankly, you know, in order to like gather the funds to like really build like the softwares that we need, and to, you know, put the time and money into developing the things that we want, it's going to require like a lot of people to getting together and saying like, we need this thing. And you know, what I see for the potential that I see in the cooperative world is basically, you know, a group of people who are an entire network that is, you know, dedicated to organizing, dedicated to people's rights, and you know, solving problems of equity, or like solving inequitability issues. You know, I just want, I feel like the cooperative world is just such a great world to start getting together and saying like, oh, we don't have, you know, we're missing some accessibility issues in Big Blue Button, right? How can we get together and you know, gather the resources to make those features become a reality? I just think that cooperatives are really well positioned to start building the infrastructure that we need, that does all the things that we need it to do, and isn't owned by bad actors. So let's see. So I mean, the process of starting to switch to free software, I'll say is, you know, it's a process, but we do have resources available. So I mean, Mickey, one of the sets of resources that's really great for free software is switching.software. It's a really great set of resources for, like it has a huge list of all the general like proprietary softwares that exist that we use regularly, and all the free software alternatives that exist to them. Chris, would you like to speak to any of these other links that we have available, Framasoft and Google iTunes? Did we lose Chris?
No, I'm just trying to deal with the noise.
I see.
Not doing the best job at it. But that's all right.
All right. Thanks, Chris. So Framasoft is also another excellent resource. They have a few different resources available. One of them is a scheduling app. You know, I know that one thing that exists is like, there's Doodle for scheduling calendar events with people and like collaboratively trying to find like, set a date and time in order to, find when do we want to do this event. And the Framasoft does have a tool called Framadate. It's a really awesome alternative to Doodle. It's actually listed on switching.software. But anyway, just trying to point out that there are really, there are a ton of resources. Some of them, these links below will really help out with, trying to figure out what these alternatives are. If you want to check out Agaric's blog, which is the last link at the bottom, that is a list of all the softwares that Agaric uses. All the softwares that Agaric uses for our daily business operations, and so this might be a great model for any businesses or any of you co-ops out there that do want to start switching over to using free software for all of your operations, or for as many of them. Mickey, did you want to add anything about this slide?
Well, yeah, switching is not easy. It takes a lot of hand-holding sometimes, and also switching is not always possible for the task that the person is using their software for. There's a lot of software that does not yet exist in free software, and we need to, those more knowledgeable and deep into it need to be filtering requests and information from people who are tied to the proprietary software world and helping them connect more deeply with projects that are based around software they're using, like Inkscape for one, which a lot of Adobe platform users do not know about the free version of things like Inkscape. And it's like Adobe Illustrator, allows you to create things, but using free software, not proprietary.
Right, and I think I do just want to re-bring up the point that we were mentioning earlier, that a big part of switching over to free software, I think, as a community, is just starting to organize around it and saying, like, we need this, we need these tools, let's build them together. So there's switching to free software as an individual, switching to free software as a single organization, and then really trying to switch over to free software as an entire network of people who are interested in liberation.
True.
So yeah,
Yep.
the Framasoft is actually a nonprofit in France, and they provide, like, in addition to that de-googling, the alternative to, and that one's on the pad as well. It does have, like, it has a whole bunch of corporate proprietary software, but they do have a filter on their software list now where you can select open source as an option. So that's another good way to find a lot of alternatives. Yeah, that's it. Go ahead. Sorry, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And so we did just want to get into, like, a little bit about what support for free software tends to look like, because it is a little bit different than generally getting support for corporate proprietary softwares. Mickey and Chris, can you speak to this?
Well, I spoke to it a little before about how it's different. It's just a different way of going about it, and it involves more of getting to know people and getting more on a human level with people instead of being a number waiting in line to be supported. There are many forums online. You can join email lists. There is the software website if you're using a particular software, like, as I mentioned, Inkscape. And also someone mentioned that GIMP is a great replacement for Photoshop. It's the GNU Image Manipulation Program. It's free to download, comes with a lot of GNU Linux installs. And there's also search engine results. Searching for using learning search queries is one of the advanced skills of today and the future. these are what you will need to find things and to be relevant. Your search engine query skills. So helping children learn those, learn how to search for something, is definitely going to boost their learning knowledge and their ability to find things like free software. So, and there are also free software communities that you can join. And I'll let Chris talk about that, where he had mentioned about joining some of the software cooperatives that actively engage in building free software.
Well, I think that we talk about some of that a little bit further on, as far as May 1st and stuff. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's definitely an option, like to build free software platforms in partnership with other cooperatives. You know, one potential idea is to come together with other cooperatives and find common requirements for operating your business that you could work on together. You know, there are platform cooperatives where, you know, that's a term that was coined to discuss. Excuse me, somebody's.
To discuss the building of platforms together as cooperatives.
Yes.
I'll put a link to that in the chat.
And I also just want to kind of point out that when we are discussing like what support for free software looks like, or what support for any software looks like, right? I mean, one of the things that's great about free software is that we can make the support look like anything that we want, which we can discuss a little bit with like May 1st. But but ultimately we can form our own support networks. We can form our own networks for educating how to use softwares. And so I do just want to make that point, and how to like overcome problems with issues. We can make our own network and have our own like shared resources for and have dedicated people within a huge network who can help to like manage some of the issues that we have and kind of act as IT for a group of cooperatives. So that's something that we can share, and some of us already do.
Yeah, actually, that's something that that I think this is what Mickey was asking that I get at. That like the May 1st is actually working on. For example, we're trying to document a number of the products that we're using that we provide to members, and also get that documentation translated where that's needed, because there's unfortunately a lot more documentation that's just in English. So yeah, that's something that we work on there. And I mean, finally, just don't forget too that some of the larger projects that are out there, for infrastructure, if you require something larger, there are larger corporations that will provide support contracts for that as well. And given that the source code is available, those companies might be the people that wrote the software, but they're not the only experts on the software. Dug into the software a lot and learned a lot about it, and are able to offer a parallel level of support. So, for paid support, if that's the type of thing that you wanted.
Yep, definitely. So that does kind of bring us into the last section, which is, how do you choose your web host? Go ahead, Mickey.
Actually, before we get into that, I just can't stop myself. I've just got to say, we've never experienced this type of a disruption on Big Blue Button, which does not mean that it can't happen. But it does mean that there is a clear and easy way to see who the disruptor is in Big Blue Button and stop them or remove them from the room, either temporarily or permanently. I can't believe people have been dealing with this. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it's making me laugh because I have never hosted a Zoom thing. And I'd like to say I'm feeling really badly about being on the Zoom platform again. I'd like to state that publicly, loudly, and that I am so glad I am not subject to this platform for my communications. And I think people are saying in the chat they've seen this happen several times. I can point to lots of features as to why this happens, allowing a name change. You know, like, what is the purpose of that? You can, in Big Blue Button, you just log out and change your name and log back in, but you can still see who is the disruptor. So I'm sorry, it's comical to me, and I'm very sorry for people who have had to suffer through this. I have a very thick skin and find irony and humor in horror like this. So I'm very sad for all of you, but it lets you know that we feel this conference is so important, and your privacy and our privacy is so important to us that we just had to be here, and we agreed to do it on Zoom. So now I see what all the news things were about Zoom bombings, and it's just like, oh my God, what a thing. How could this be? And people just don't know they can get privacy using Big Blue Button so easily. Thank you.
It's also just a great shout out to our disruptor, you know, like
Wow.
for making a great example of our case. And
yes,
what we're talking, like, thank you for contributing to the topic that we have today. So you've really made our point clear. Thank you.
Yeah, looks like it's easy to infiltrate and to name yourself as someone else too. I never knew that. We are learning here.
Awesome. So we have, as we're moving on to the question again of, you know, how do we choose our web host, and, you know, why is it important to choose our web host, and generally, you know, what would we recommend for that?
Well, we have about 10 minutes left, so I'd like to maybe after this open it up to questions, if there are, if anyone didn't get any questions about so how do you choose your web host? Yeah, are they a cooperative? There are some cooperative web hosting establishments around, and what hosting strategy you prefer is very important, because there are different types. There's dedicated hosting, there's shared hosting, VPS hosting. There are like different types of hosting, and depending on what your objective is with your company or your website, if you're just a lone artist doing a website, what do you need? What would make it, you know, easy and good and solid for you to have web hosting and affordable? You have to think about that. So Chris, I know you had some ideas around this too. Boom, bomb, scream, pop. No, sorry, I couldn't resist.
No, actually, I mean, you know, some people have seen this happen before with the interruptions and whatnot, and a lot of people haven't too. So, anywho, yeah, it's been hard for me to stay on focus. So, good job. Anyway, yeah, no, I mean, obviously there's a number of concerns, and, you know, in addition to these technical ones, like, there are other things too. I mean, for example, you know, the energy use by hosting centers, you know, and the internet at large, like, is pretty significant. So, you know, there are hosters that do focus on green hosting to, you know, reduce your carbon impact there. And, you know, as far as using web hosts that, you know, have kind of a simple, actually, do we still have the slide in here with the nation builder terms?
Yes.
Yeah.
If we get to those.
So yeah, I mean, for example, like, if you're using something like Nation Builder, you know, like, be aware that your choice is putting your visitors under these terms, you know. So it's not just what you do to select your own tools, but what you're subjecting others to as well. So yeah. You know, and there's a number of options and levels for hosting. I don't know if it makes all that much sense to really dig into heavily, unless there's questions about it, but I guess I'll leave it at that.
Right. I mean, I think just to kind of wrap it up, when we talk about like the question of are they a cooperative, the last one is there a phone number that allows you to reach a person? Like, can you talk to people about, you know, what the organization is about and how, you know, and even just being able to reach a person is, you know, good for just knowing like that you're going to get, you know, the high, like the quality support that you need, and be able to like talk to a person about the issues that you have and how to solve the problems that you're having. Right. I mean, just having access to people, and even better, like if it is a full, if your web host is a full cooperative, you know, then you get to be a member of that and you get to contribute to the direction of it and have a say in what software services that web host provides, right? I mean, it just, you become a member of a network that's building infrastructure together, right? And so, I mean, that is just, I think, a really powerful path forward where technology is just at the center of like everything that we do now. And so why not also center it in our political actions? Right. And I think the way to do that is to form communities around ethical technology. And I think that, you know, being a part of a web host cooperative like May 1st is just such a great way to start doing that. Did anyone else have anything else that they want to add, or are there any questions that are floating up in the chat comments? We've got 4 minutes left.
So in the interest of full disclosure, I could have done better trying to control the noise here. There is actually an option that I hadn't turned on that should help with that, unless we want to actually allow people to unmute for discussion. So yeah, I guess if you have a question, feel free to write it and we can unmute you if you'd like to talk about it or raise your hand.
Great. I'd also like to just say we'd love to continue this conversation, and I'm posting a link here. We'll be in our big blue button chat room for the rest of the day and into the evening. And if anyone wants to pop in, ask questions, talk, or join us, or you know, relate things they couldn't relate here that we can add to the pad or to our website, please feel free to join us there. It's simple. You don't need to download anything. Click on the link, and the access code is Privacy Trust. And we host privacy workshops every week to help people gain knowledge on how to maintain your privacy and awareness of things. So. Yep, and we'll also make our slides available.
Yep, absolutely. And just want to, you know, point out this is something that we're, you know, constantly thinking about and trying to figure out how to communicate to people that this is something, everything that we've talked about today is, you know, stuff that's really important to us as people, as tech workers, as cooperators. So if you know, if you have questions or comments or suggestions, I mean, like please do contact us. Our contact is here on this slide, ask@agaric.coop. And we do want to hear. What's up, Nikki?
Yeah, someone is telling me that they thought this went till 5:30.
Oh, really?
That is correct. I was literally just typing in the chat to you that this is supposed to go later.
Me and my clock.
Well,
yeah.
Great. So after 5:30, join us in the big blue button chat if you'd like.
All right.
So we're still going. Yes. All right. There are some great questions in the chat. Are there resources that describe different cooperative web hosting service providers? Yes. On our website there and on the pad, we can put some resources in there. We did have a slide about a good policy, a good privacy policy from May 1st. May 1st is a cooperative, and we're also a web hosting facility, or whatever you'd call it. We help you host your websites.
A web host?
And, yeah, we're a web host, and it's an ethical web host. And you have an option to have a voice when you join May 1st. I see Carlos has a question. So let's see if we can. I've unmuted you.
Hi. Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Carlos Reynosa. I had a question. I mean, I guess maybe it's a general comment regarding this. I know that you guys have been talking about free software in relationship to cooperatives. I guess a general thing would be is I've been trying to find like more information in organizations related specifically to software and cooperatives. And do you guys know of any kind of organizations or general groups specifically focused in the area of promoting and growing technology-based software cooperatives and organizations? Because I haven't really been able to find any. So it's like, it's kind of hard to find, information about it. And also, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity there too,
Right.
Yeah, there's a tech co-op list on Electric Embers that you could pretty easily find somebody through. Let me get the link to that for you. But in terms of like general business services that are focused on free software, I actually don't know anybody, which is too bad. I mean, we need to start a cooperative there.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like, I don't know. My main thing is programming and software, and that seems like something I think we all need. Like something focused specifically on promoting cooperative development within the technology sector, because it seems like it's a big hole. So yeah, thank you for that. And
thank you for your question, Carlos. There's yeah, and it sounds like Alex is interested in doing that too.
I can just say a few things to this. There is a group in basically there are a few technology like cooperative tech federations. One existing in the UK called COTEC, and there's another one existing in Argentina called FACTIC. And one of the things that Garrick has been having a lot of conversations about like weekly with a few other cooperatives is how to build a federation of cooperatives in North America or in the United States, and how to just start going about that. For the most part, we do have a small network of tech cooperatives that we talk to regularly, and that's excellent. But really trying to figure out, well, like, how do we get the capacity to have a more like central organization that can manage all these tech cooperatives, like really like working together in a more organized manner, and having more of a process to like bring in tech work with each other. I don't know if that is at all related to your question as much as so that's one side of the question. The other side, other thing I wanted to mention is if you haven't heard of it, I would hope that most people here have heard about it, but there is a platform cooperative movement related to this, which there is a lot of talk about free software in and around the platform co-op movement. And typically, we do want for that conversation about free software to stay like very alive and active within that movement. But for anyone that doesn't know about platform cooperativism, this isn't like our topic for today, but it is basically a movement to start building platforms that are owned by the users that are vested in that software. So there are communities there that you might be interested in looking into more, and just seeing, there are people who do have like some pretty big projects that are up and coming in the platform co-op movement, and so really interesting stuff going on there.
Yeah, I just posted in the chat a link to the platform cooperative directory of software. It's all software that's being built like all over the world, that is being built as platforms by the people who will use the platform. And it's really excelled over the past year. They're having a conference next week. It's in Berlin, but it's also online. I'll post a link to that also, but you could just go to platform.coop. So
a really common example of what a platform cooperative might look like is basically imagine Uber, but owned in some configuration by the drivers and the people who get rides. That can exist in multiple ways, but obviously, having a cooperative that's formed around a platform does require, forming governance and defining that governance.
right. And I see Steve has a hand up. I'm going to unmute you, Steve, if you're ready to ask a question. Whoops. How do I do that? Lower hand.
You just
check.
did.
Oh, hi.
Hi. I wanted to speak to this question a little bit. There are a number of efforts around the U.S. I'm from Shy Commons Co-op in Chicago, and we map the cooperative sector and solidarity sectors in Chicago. But we're also a technology co-op. We offer technology and business services in the area, both to cooperatives and to the small medium enterprise market. And you brought up the platform co-op folks. There is also a group of us trying to get together called the U.S. Tech Workers from a variety of co-ops like Agaric and Nova Web Development, Shy Commons, etc. And so there are those types of organizations around the U.S. There are tech cooperatives in a lot of different cities in the U.S. And so just look in your location. Who was it, Carlos, that asked about that? In your location. If you want to reach out to me, I'll put my contact in the chat. I'm complete.
Awesome. Great. So we can either continue on with more questions, or we can go into more depth about web hosting. Chris, Mickey, did you have any thoughts?
I do not presently.
Okay.
Just looking back, trying to look back over the chat, see if we missed anything.
All right.
Actually, if we did miss a comment from you that's important, or a question, if you want to re-ask it, that would be good. Or again, raise your hand and we'll unmute you.
Great. So I will say that while we're on the topic of web hosting, one of the big points that's really important when you're trying to choose your web host, besides knowing whether or not your web host does respect the privacy of the users of the sites and that are being hosted, is how portable will your site be? And for example, you can take a look at I guess we don't have this link here. It might be in the pad, but one example is if you take a look at Squarespace, right? One of the reasons which you might want to think twice about Squarespace anyway, is that it's challenging to move your site away from it. They do have a page on how to move your website off of Squarespace, and if you take a look at that page, you might notice that there are two bullet point lists. One of them is content that can be exported from Squarespace, and one of them is content that cannot be exported easily from Squarespace. And the cannot list is a little bit longer than the can list. So, you know, and this does this is just something to consider, right? If you expect to have a site that's going to scale, like to have, you know, some amount of functionality and need to grow pretty large, then like Squarespace might not be the choice for you. If you intend to have if you really want to respect the privacy of your visitors, like Squarespace might not be the choice for you. But of course, these are all things to weigh. There are other reasons to choose Squarespace. Mickey or Chris, did you have anything that you wanted to add about this point about portability?
Yeah, I mean, you basically covered it. I mean, Squarespace, you know, a lot of people are using that. That's another one where, you know, your visitors are subject to the privacy policy for Squarespace as well, where, yeah, like Keegan said, there is an export function, and you know, anywhere you put something, I would say make sure that there's some kind of export function and that it's actually useful. In their case, I guess it's arguable to say whether or not it's useful. You know, your images won't come out, and stuff like that. Like the list was literally like 7 to 10. Like, these 7 things you get, these 10 things won't work. And it was quite a number of things. So it's really kind of, I don't know. It feels to me like it's just to shut up those people that want to make sure they can move away, you know, kind of thing, without researching it very much. Yeah, you know, even if you went with someplace light for hosting that was a WordPress site, you know, WordPress is a free software tool for building websites. And, you know, even if you have that on some web host where you're using cPanel to get into it and all of that kind of thing, it's not a big deal to get all of your content off of that server and fully working somewhere else.
One thing I'd like to mention, though, is that sometimes these services like Wix or Squarespace will offer a feature that you cannot use when you transfer your site. So it's some kind of a special offer they've made that kind of locks you into their platform, like mailing lists, or a way to do something that you get used to doing it. And then when you transfer your site, you find, I don't have that functionality anymore. Uh-oh. Or it's broken, you know, and so that can be problematic. You have to look for that and probably have to ask someone in the company, are there features that you offer me that are extra features that if I move my site, I will no longer have access to X?
Just share what David put in the chat. David, if you wanted to put your email address on the pad, you feel free. I'm not going to copy that over there. But yeah, if anybody wants to get onto that, the Mattermost chat system that that David shared, you can email him directly.
Yeah, it does require an invite, so please. You can write to us at ask@agaric.coop also, or david@colab.coop.
Yeah, and Chris, it's kind of our. Chris says it seems like that's a co-op in and of itself, helping to wean people from these unfair platform dependencies. And yeah, it certainly is. You know, it's like our part-time job, and it's like shoveling uphill type of thing. It's pretty difficult.
Yes.
Even for the people that are actually interested in it, because, you know, we have to admit that not everything works perfectly when you escape from the corporate ecosystem there. You know, there are still a couple of rough edges out there. You know, by and large, there are equivalents that you can use for just about everything, or basically everything, but the level of difficulty in getting there varies. For some of them, it's really, really simple and intuitive, and thanks to nonprofits like Framasoft and stuff, you know, using a whole bunch of the other tools that are hosted are very easy and intuitive. But yeah, in some cases, it takes some dedication.
So I have a question, and I'd like to ask everyone for input on this if you have it. If you don't have it today and get it tomorrow, please add it to the pad. How do we make inroads into the cooperative ecosystem with asking for things like, can we use ethical software for chatting at our next conference? Can we have some resources on the usworker.coop website for ethical choices of softwares? Can we start a section of the website that can help lead people in cooperatives to cooperatively developed free software? So if anyone has any ideas around that, I would love to have them. Also, you could send them to ask@agaric.coop, or as I said, just post them on the pad as comments down below the links.
And so while we're waiting for that, I do just want to, you know, point out one of the things, like one of the ways in which Agaric really practices a lot of these principles in our work. You know, we do develop a platform. We have developed a platform called Drutopia, which is a distribution of Drupal, and which is a free software CMS, a really powerful one. And one of the problems with Drupal is that it tends to be, you know, pretty expensive to maintain and pretty expensive to build and develop, you know, like fully fleshed out things, because it is so big and powerful. And one of the, you know, goals behind Drutopia is to try to make Drupal a little bit more accessible, cost-wise, to like smaller grassroots organizations. And so we do that by basically, Drutopia is a specific configuration of Drupal, which a group of grassroots organizations might need to share the same configuration. And by sharing that configuration together, we can reduce the costs of developing and maintaining a Drupal site, since we already have this thing built that everyone needs, while also, you know, and I guess the idea behind this is that if we had a bunch of people using Drutopia, then we could have big conversations about like, well, what features should Drutopia have in it, and how can we develop it further, and how can we like cooperatively define what this platform really is. I think that's really the dream behind Drutopia, and it's a great example of just kind of like how in you know, our like business life we try to practice what we preach here. So I did just want to point that out, and if anyone you know, knows anyone that might be needing websites and things, that to take a look at drutopia.org is at drutopia.org is you know, a place where you can learn more about Drutopia, but it's also it's a Drutopia site itself, so you can get an idea of what it looks like. But definitely that's something that anyone can ask us more about, and we can provide more details there. All right, so any more questions or comments coming in from the chat?
Yes. Someone was looking for the pad. Thank you for sharing that, David. And would using Drutopia as an alternative to WordPress as a CMS be straightforward, or would there be significant customization necessary to migrate? I guess it depends upon what you're actually asking about migrating. But the way that Drutopia works presently is that it comes with some basic models for different types of content pages that a grassroots organization would be likely to use based on the ones that are using it so far. So I mean, there is actually we do actually offer hosting for it as well. But I mean, if you had like a large WordPress site with a whole bunch of content and whatnot, you know, it would be, you know, just there's no direct, you know, kind of automated automation to pull directly from WordPress into Drutopia, if that's the kind of thing that you were asking about. I mean, you can use Drupal migrations to do those kinds of things, but that would be some effort, a fair bit of effort probably. I don't know if there's, maybe you know, Keegan, if there's some better automated tools for extracting from WordPress these days, but anyways.
Well, one of the points with it being free software is we are working towards that. We're working towards making it the easiest thing possible. And things like Open Collective can help. It takes time, and people should be paid for their time. And a lot of people have donated a lot of time to what we have so far, but that is what we are working towards, making it as simple an install as WordPress, and bam, there you go.
So someone's suggesting building a progressive web app so that my site could essentially be accessed offline. Is that too advanced for Drutopia with where it is in development? That is probably not something that would happen on Drutopia at this point. I am just looking at something quick. I mean, Drupal isn't the first thing that I would think to use for a progressive web application, honestly. But you know, there would be better people to ask than me, to be quite frank. Anyways, there is a progressive web app module for Drupal. So some people are doing it somewhere. There's a couple of them actually. Anyway, yeah, no, not right now.
Yeah, Chris from Chicago is asking, what issues are there with WordPress that they might have missed? I haven't.
Well, was that a question to, was it Farnav? Was it? Sorry if I got the name wrong. Or a question to us?
Faramars? Yeah, it sounds like it'd be manual migration then. Yes, it would be.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think that we had necessarily had any problem with WordPress itself. I mean, the modules ecosystem for WordPress is kind of a mess, in my opinion. There's a lot of software that integrates with WordPress that is not really open source or has kind of strange licensing. You know, so if you want to extend WordPress, you need to kind of be selective about your modules that you include. But WordPress in and of itself, I mean, it's free software. You can host it in a lot of different places. I had brought it up as, you know, an alternative to Squarespace or Wix, in that you have, you know, even if you have a web host that you can use today, and WordPress is one of the things that they support using, like that's an easy choice to have a site where you still maintain some portability for the site. You know, if you needed to move to another host, if they shut down, if whatever, you know, that's all.
Yeah, that's the thing, what to do when your web host shuts down. We did not even touch on that, but you know, that's a whole nother topic. We should we do host a privacy workshop every Wednesday, and we ask people for topics or things they would like to discuss. It doesn't always have to be strictly about privacy work, but also Garrick hosts a show and tell every Thursday at this time of day. Well, earlier at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Every week we host a show and tell, and you can bring your topics or ask beforehand. Just send an email like, I'd like to discuss this, and it's pretty much an open flow of technologists and organic people getting together and discussing things, and presentations on things you've learned or demonstrations on things, etc. So please do join us. The links are on the pad and on our website. So, well, I think we have a couple of more minutes left, but again, if anyone would like to join us, we'll be in the Community Bridge Privacy Workshop room. And I could post that link again if anyone wants to continue the conversation. And yeah, it's just a deep conversation. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of questions out of there.
Yeah, I definitely want to thank everyone that's come to listen to us, just talk today. It's really awesome that people do care about this topic and want to discuss it further. And we hope that this conversation will continue regularly and grow. So please do join us in our conversations, and please do try to spread the word about what it is that we're trying to do here. So and if you have any questions, if you're still not entirely sure about anything, then definitely we do want to get those questions answered as best as we can, even if those are long conversations in the future.
So another question that came out, and maybe this was somewhat related to my sharing the social.coop link. Social.coop is a Mastodon instance, which basically works. Well, they call it a microblogging system. It's essentially like Twitter, except that there's a network, or what's called a Fediverse, of Mastodon instances that can cross-communicate around the internet, and each instance of Mastodon kind of is also its own island that you can talk internally on, but you can reach across those instances as well. Anyways, yeah, the question was, what are your thoughts on cooperative alternatives to Facebook and Instagram? Me personally, I haven't looked at that space recently. I know that diaspora was a big thing for a while, and GNU Social, and there was another one I'm not remembering. But in any case, it didn't feel as though there were any particular networks that were really growing the way that Mastodon at least has. Mastodon seems to have worked really well for having a way of providing a similar tool without it being centralized. So yeah, I don't have specific thoughts on alternatives to Facebook or Instagram, but it would be awesome to have some sort of a member co-op that where the members basically ran the Facebook platform replacement.
And that can definitely, I think more social.coops would be a great thing. More Mastodon instances that are, maintained for the sake of like a cooperative of people who own it together, or just, that's dedicated to cooperatives coming together and working I mean, the great thing about Mastodon is a lot of its features are just much less, and it's really noticeable when you're using it. They just, you know, I mean, like for example, they don't display like on the top level all the likes on every comment. You know, you can see the like, or I guess they're favorites in Mastodon. You can click on a comment and you can see the number of favorites it has, but this is just one example of a you know a design choice that I think is nice, is that by obscuring those numbers a little bit, it kind of turns it into less of a you know, a battle for getting more likes, getting more recognition. You know, it's less of a you know, who gets more attention, who's better. You know, it doesn't have to be that. It can just be like people talking to each other. The features are just a little bit more conducive to healthier user behavior. And since it's not, you know, targeting you to try to get you to behave in a certain way.
Well, I think we've reached our 5:30 time. My clock is 2 minutes into the future, so it's 5:32 here. How is it there? Great. But yeah, thank you everyone for coming. We really enjoyed the questions. I don't know if there's a way to copy the chat here, but I'm just highlighting it, you know, completely and getting it with all the timestamps and all of that. Just like to mention, Big Blue Button has a really cool way to copy, not just the chat, but there's a shared pad, so you can have you can create a business document while you're in the chat room itself and not have to leave it. So thank you for coming. Thank you for attending Co-op Week. This is a wonderful event. I love seeing everyone and connecting with everyone every year here. So any notes to us or comments, either write to us at Ask It a Garrick or leave it on the pad. We'll be checking the pad the next few days, or join us in the privacy workshop any Wednesday. Show and tell every Thursday at 3 o'clock Eastern time. Any last comments, or do we just stay here and chat until we're cut off?